Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Tuesday morning to you all. Hope you guys are doing great out there this morning and having a wonderful start to your day and a great week out there so far. There is a lot to talk about in this morning's video, but the first thing we'll cover is today's weather. We'll speak on current conditions, the latest outlooks, then we'll break down the country section by section. There is a couple areas that we'll zoom into that continue to run the risk of flash flooding and severe weather, so we'll do that. After we get done talking about today's weather, we'll begin to discuss Wednesday onward, which I think will run the risk of severe weather. In fact, the Storm Prediction Center has areas highlighted already. Wednesday, tomorrow, don't think will be a huge day. There is a level 2 out of 5 risk of severe weather across the northern portions of the country, but Thursday onward, and I'll just leave it at that, it could be higher in risk days for severe weather. So we're going to speak on that. We'll discuss the outlooks, what we know with that, and then we'll break down the ingredients coming together. Of course, we're still pretty far out from this event, so we can't look at short-range model guidance. We don't know the exact timing of these storms. What's going to be the highest threat level? So is it going to be tornadoes, damaging winds, hail, all the above? We're still trying to figure all of that out. But as we get closer day by day, you know, guys, I will get more and more detailed day by day. So we'll discuss all that, break it all down, and continue to try to figure this one out and nerd out with you guys a little bit. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. And just remember, if you're not worried about today's weather and you just clicked on this video to hear about the severe weather chances to come from like tomorrow, Thursday onward, just utilize those timestamps. They're there to help you guys out, and you can jump ahead to the portions of the video that you want to watch. But if you guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below so I can pray over it, and it gives a whole lot of other people an opportunity to pray over your prayer requests also. And if you want to stay tuned towards the end, we're just going to have a little Bible devotion, read through scripture a little bit, and all that good stuff. So let's get rocking and rolling. So this is current conditions. We continue to have this upper level low. This continues to bring a lot of moisture into the upper southeast portion of the country. The mid-Atlantic now is really just getting a soaker this morning. And we even continue to have some thunderstorms down here in the southern tip of Florida, the Bahamas, and those areas. But you know, I don't think it'll be as bad today for portions of the Carolinas. I think there will be a tornado risk, especially for eastern sections of North Carolina up into southeast Virginia. But like South Carolina, Georgia won't be as crazy today compared to yesterday. I was thinking we were about to have to build an ark again here in South Carolina. It was just raining nonstop. But it's going to be a soggy day up here in the mid-Atlantic. It's a soggy start to your Tuesday. We have a lot of flow that's riding over the Rockies now. We'll discuss that more in detail as we move forward. But this is bringing just some moisture across the Rockies. Higher elevation snow, lower elevation rain. We're actually going to get a little bit of a severe weather risk across some of these areas that we'll talk about, especially as we get into the Dakotas for later on this afternoon. The middle of the country, pretty hot, pretty quiet. And I was about to say pretty hot because it's going to get hot later on this afternoon, this evening. Certain areas of Texas will get deep into the 100s. But the reason that the middle of the country is pretty quiet is because we have a ridge in place that's dominating the central portion of the country. So that's current conditions. Latest Storm Prediction Center outlook as of right now. We do have a marginal risk for some hail, some gusty winds up here in the high plains. I'm not going to really zoom into that much, but this is sort of the beginning stages of a lot of flow beginning to enter the middle of the country. A little bit of moisture up here. This will aid in a little bit of a severe weather threat. But once again, we will have a very small severe weather threat across the southeast today. There is a tornado risk here and a tornado risk here, but level 1 out of 5 marginal risk in the dark green, general risk of thunderstorms in the light green. But there's that tornado outlook. You know, if you live, there's a little area here from basically Tupelo down to Birmingham that has a 2% risk of a tornado. I'm going to watch a few storms that are going to form in this area. They could pack a punch, so just be aware of that. And then there is a tornado threat here in eastern North Carolina, southeastern Virginia, southern areas of Maryland like the Tidewater, you know, Rocky Mount, Greenville, the Outer Banks, up to Virginia Beach, Norfolk, Richmond. You guys have a 2% risk of a tornado today. The other threats are just for some gusty winds, some small hail, which is possible with some of these storms today. The excessive rainfall outlook, will just keep it in this area because this is the only area that runs the risk of flash flooding. DC up to Harrisburg, Baltimore, down to Norfolk, Greenville, North Carolina, and all of central and northern VA and eastern sections of West Virginia and a good chunk of Maryland runs that slight risk of flash flooding. So if I click here, it'll say a 15% risk of flash flood guidance being met within 25 miles of any given location. The green is a 5% risk. So just be Be aware of a lot of rain falling in a short amount of time for some of these areas. We had it yesterday here in central South Carolina. It can happen again in some of these areas for pretty much the next 24 hours. Watches, warnings, and advisories. You notice heat advisories in the orange down here in Texas. We're going to talk about why in a second. Obviously, it's because it's going to get hot, but we're going to talk about how hot here in a second. But we do have some dense fog advisories down here in Florida, very moist air mass in place. Some dense fog advisories across and really just around the Mississippi Valley area, especially points west. Red flag warnings in this pink color up here in the north central U.S., including the Dakotas, a few counties in Iowa, and a good chunk of Minnesota. Dry, hot conditions for this time of the year. Red flag warnings down here across the Four Corners region. We got wind advisories, high wind warnings. Just windy conditions as a lot of flow is about to move over this area. Flood watches continue up in the green counties and areas of the mid-Atlantic and the upper southeast. So this is what's going on as far as that. Now let's break it down section by section. This is the southeast, a broad look at everything. So there's two areas I'm watching. One is this cluster of storms that comes out of sort of southern Tennessee and the northern Mississippi and northern Alabama. And then these storms right up into here. I want to watch these two that get going. Could have a little bit of a tornado threat with them this afternoon. But there is definitely going to be some storms up here in Kentucky, eastern Tennessee. And then there will eventually be some more pop-up thunderstorms in Georgia and the Carolinas again. But not everybody's going to get hit by them. Very isolated type risk for today. We'll actually get some sunshine for a lot of these areas. But you see those storms up here in eastern VA. So let's go on and zoom into a couple areas. So Mississippi, Alabama. This is around 1 p.m., 2 p.m., 3 p.m. You notice these storms up here near Florence, Huntsville, down to Birmingham. They don't look that bad initially, but we could get a couple more intense storms. Like, look at this one between Tupelo and Florence, around 6 p.m. If you live around this area, just be aware of a couple cells that could do something tricky up here in this region for today. And that cell could drift all the way down to Birmingham by the time we get into sunset. So there's just a little corridor right into here where I want to watch a couple cells, a little bit of a tornado risk. And then Virginia and North Carolina goes all the way up to D.C. We're getting just a round of heavy rain and storm activity this morning. But as we are getting into the afternoon, you see more storms firing. I mean, even into the North Carolina mountains, south of Raleigh, between Raleigh and Fayetteville, Roanoke getting some storms too up to Charleston. But Richmond, I really want to watch these storms. Ingredients will overlap each other a little bit better that supports tornadoes. So by the time we get into 5 p.m., you see these cells right in here. Just be careful. You might get a tornado warning out there today. Just a 2% risk of a tornado, but some of these cells could produce. We're definitely going to get some strong to severe storms in this area for today, from Harrisonburg down to Charlottesville, Richmond, all the way down to Greenville, maybe even Jacksonville, North Carolina. So, but there will be some storms up into eastern Kentucky, West Virginia, western Virginia, and the mountains of Tennessee and North Carolina too. So stormy areas elsewhere too, even outside that tornado risk area. So, and you never know, you can get a tornado even in an area that's not even labeled in the 2% risk area. So be aware of that. But even as we get late to the night, this is midnight, we're still getting rounds of downpours. I do think the severe weather element of it will probably diminish, but we even have some downpours around 5 o'clock in the morning around the Greenville-Spartanburg area for tomorrow morning. So that's that. Up here in the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast, waking up, obviously, like I mentioned, to just a washout in areas of the Mid-Atlantic. This rain will try to get north, so by the time we're into this afternoon, 3, 4 o'clock, just rounds of downpours across Ohio, Indiana, southern areas of lower Michigan, West Virginia. More of just a solid chunk of rain, if you will, up here in PA, light rain into southern tier of New York. And then by the time we get late into the evening, things should diminish somewhat, but still just rounds of light rain. And we actually could get some of this rain to still be heavy in like southeast PA, the Delmarva, down to Maryland, southern areas of New Jersey. We can continue just to get heavier downpours, more so just a light to moderate rain up here in the southern tier of New York. But this is like well after midnight and waking up tomorrow morning to just a slug of heavy rain continuing to push onshore into New Jersey, into PA. So it'll just be wet over the next 48 hours. And rainfall between now and about 8 p.m. tomorrow. I'm going to let you see the key. So this red area, that's over 2 inches of rain. So 2 to as much as 4 inches of rain is possible throughout eastern North Carolina, portions of VA, a lot of rain all the way up into PA. The purple area is over an inch. So good bit of rain today. And even some more rain down in eastern South Carolina. Watch out. Northern Georgia around Chattanooga could get about a half an inch to an inch of additional rain, guys. So just washout conditions continue because of this upper level low. So now down to the south central U.S., it's a quiet weather day. I think things will calm down a bit in Arkansas and Missouri, where you guys have just had those pesky showers and storms. I don't think today will be like that too much, but can't rule out something. But we get into the overnight hours all the way into tomorrow morning. There's nothing really going on. Maybe some breezy conditions, and especially in Texas. The wild thing to me is, look how hot it is in Texas today. These are high temperatures for today. Somebody might hit 110 degrees. Now, it'll be a bit of a dry heat. The further east you always get in Texas, the more of a humidity type heat there is. The further west you get in Texas, it's more of a dry heat. But man, 105, 106 degrees is 105, 106 degrees, right? So you get down to central, southwestern Texas, well over 100 degrees for high temperatures, guys. So it is going to be a scorcher. That's why there is heat advisory. So did just want to spend a couple extra seconds on that. But the north central U.S., it's a quiet weather day. We will get widespread showers and storms that will pop up in Indiana and Ohio. These could drift into eastern Illinois. We could get some pop-up downpours, maybe all the way up to Grand Rapids, Kalamazoo, maybe Gaylord today. But we get into the overnight hours, and I do want to watch a cluster of storms that tries to move into the western Dakotas later on this evening and last through the overnight hours. And just taking a closer look at this, there is a marginal risk for this cluster of storms. We start to get into this evening, not a whole lot. We get into late evening. Just watch a couple of these storms. I mean, even into eastern Wyoming, it has this circle coming off of it. This indicates maybe a little rotation with this storm, stronger updraft. So this is late evening, like 11 o'clock, getting close to midnight. Watch for these storms in western South Dakota. And eventually these storms will try to hold together in western North Dakota. But just watch out for this cluster of storms, more so just heavy rain back into Montana. Now, the rest of the western U.S. will continue just to get this storm system that's moving in. So rain, higher elevation snow. You see the splotches of blue here. That's that higher elevation snow. But most areas will just be seeing rain off this. And we do have some winter storm watches out here for some of that higher elevation snow. But for the most part, this is just spinning rain. And there's those storms forming in the western Dakotas. And we'll just get more of a solid rainfall in central Montana overnight tonight. And then we'll have to watch into tomorrow. So temperatures, we've already mentioned Texas, but we still have this area of rain-cooled and cloud-cooled air right in this region where this upper level low continues to spin. So 60s and 70s, but it will be more so a humid 60s and 70s. So if you are wondering, why is Canada warmer than this area right here to the south? And it's just because of that upper level low. It affects the temperatures. If the sun can't come out, then the temperatures can't warm, right? So southeast 70s and 80s, but this is a humid 70s and 80s, not a cool, crisp spring, fall air mass, 60s and 70s and 80s. So just remember that. But the middle of the country, pretty warm, 80s, 90s. But out west, with the system moving in, trough moving in place, this is cooling down your temperatures pretty dramatically. So there's a pretty stout temperature gradient just a little bit further east and southeast as compared to yesterday across the western U.S. So that's today's weather. Now let's move forward and let's talk about tomorrow really quick. So this is tomorrow's severe weather threat. There is a marginal risk across areas of the Carolinas and eastern Virginia all the way up into Delaware and Maryland. This is just because you got a moist air mass with a little bit of flow moving in. So we could get some strong to severe storms in this area too, but we're not going to focus too much on that. You see this area right here across the upper middle of the country, the Dakotas, Minnesota, down in Nebraska, there's now a level 2 out of 5 risk of severe weather. This includes Bismarck, Jamestown, Aberdeen, down to Mitchell, down to just west of Sioux Falls, Sioux City, but all the way down to Norfolk, Nebraska, Columbus, almost down to Grand Island. So level 2 out of 5 risk of severe weather. This is driven off a 2% risk of a tornado. Wind threat is 15% risk, 55 to 60 mile per hour winds, and the hail threat is just at 5% for now. But this is what I would call day one. of an active severe weather stretch. And I don't think tomorrow will be overly crazy, but I do think this is sort of the pre-event of what's to come over the next several days after this. This is caused by all the flow beginning to move into the middle of the country. Now, let's look at day 3. Remember, day 3 is Thursday. This is the day that's had a 15% risk up for the last several days. And now that we're into day 3, it shows the actual slight risk outlook here in the yellow. So this has tweaked some. Okay, this has moved further east. So we have a slight risk, level 2 out of 5 risk of severe weather from Eau Claire all the way up to the southern sections of the UP, includes most of lower Michigan, Detroit, Kalamazoo, South Bend into Indiana, Indianapolis, includes Cincinnati, Dayton over to Toledo, includes Chicago, Rockford, Milwaukee, Green Bay, Madison. So large area, level 2 out of 5 risk of severe weather. And I think there's going to be an area that gets an enhanced risk off this. We just got to figure out who's going to get it. Now, there is a marginal risk that covers the rest of the UP, goes all the way up to Duluth, and goes all the way back to Minneapolis, and all the way down to Arkansas, and all the way over to Western PA, includes most of West Virginia. So what we know now, this is all we know, is that there is a 15% risk of any severe weather. So if I had to make a shot right now, I would say that someone's going to end up getting a 10% risk of a tornado, and there's going to be a risk of damaging winds and hail. But we'll know more as we get into tomorrow. Okay, so let's back it up to this. Now, remember Friday, a 15% risk was issued yesterday morning. And this morning, we're still waking up to it. So this is day 4. This is Friday. Basically, a slight risk for Friday at day 4. So this has changed up a little bit. It's been extended a little bit more into Kentucky, a little bit more into Indiana. So this includes Louisville, Lexington, down to Nashville, Memphis, all of northeast Arkansas, including Jonesboro, Poplar Bluff, into the boot of Missouri, and then southern areas of Illinois and Indiana, Evansville included. I think that there will be a pretty large risk area for severe weather for Friday, but the highest confidence on higher end severe weather chances for this area, and that's why there's a smaller risk. But I think this will stretch from maybe all the way back to Oklahoma, all the way into the mid-Atlantic, into portions of the Carolinas, maybe all the way down to northern sections of the deep south. So right now, level 2 out of 5 risk of severe weather. Now, past this into Saturday, there is nothing. And past day 5, day 6, day 7, day 8, there's nothing either. But I'm going to talk about a discussion from day 6 to day 8, okay, that is issued by the Storm Prediction Center. So we'll speak on that when we talk about a storm system coming next week. But I think we are going to have severe weather chances for day 5, which is Saturday, across a pretty large area. But let's talk about the system moving in. I'm not going to stay long on this, so if this part of the video kind of bores you, like, man, I don't know what I'm looking at. This is the water vapor loop. So the wider colors on your screen indicates more moisture in the atmosphere, more of the doled out colors, sort of the blacks and the darker grays. That's drier air. So you can actually see the flow very well here. We continue just to have this spinning feature like this. This is our upper level low that continues to impact our weather, bringing a lot of southerly flow into areas of the mid-Atlantic right now. This is why we're getting so much moisture, because the flow's coming in out the south, pulling in a lot of low-level rich moisture out the south. So we have this, and then we have this digging trough moving into the western U.S., and the flow is just shooting up like this, and we have kind of a ridge in place. Now, the flow is kind of getting tossed up here. This feature is going to move out the way, and as it does, you see how the white is moving like this? That is flow in the mid-levels of the atmosphere, and all levels of the atmosphere, moving across the southwest, which is why you have all those wind alerts across the southwest. Eventually, all this flow and this digging feature that you see right here is going to continue to move this way. Therefore, your flow will continue to move eastward. Okay, and eventually it's going to go across this region. So this water vapor loop will look totally different in the next 48 hours, especially as this thing weakens and continues to get on out of here. That's been plaguing our weather for a while now. So you can see basically our system that's going to promote an active severe weather stretch moving in. We're going to get an active polar jet and a very active Pacific jet that's going to just screech across this area. Polar jet going like this. So just want to show you what everything looks like on water vapor loop. Now let's talk about kinematics, wind energy. and thermodynamics, your moisture, your cape levels, surface temperatures, lapse rates, but we're just going to focus on moisture and cape levels. So once again, if you compare, this is right now based off the Euro model, right? And it makes sense, okay? You look at this little digging feature here, and the purple and the pink, and then you look at this. It matches up pretty well, right? You can see it digging here, and you can see this digging here also. So I always like to correlate and compare what the model guidance is showing to actual real-time observations and what's going on. So this is this morning. Now, we do have a little bit of that severe weather threat that I just mentioned across areas of Montana and the Dakotas. And you see why, right? You see this, I put my cursor over this region, you got 50, 55 knots of mid-level flow going right over this area. This will be a pushing mechanism in the atmosphere to get those storms going. With a little bit of moisture in the atmosphere, you could hit severe limits. But anyways, we continue to move forward. This little feature begins to try to move out of the way. Most of the flow now, as we're getting into Wednesday, is starting to enter sort of the plains, right? So we get into Wednesday afternoon. Remember, our severe weather threat for Wednesday is right into here, okay? So we go back to this. Now we see a little bit of flow over this area. Not much, 40, 50 knots, but I'll get the job done. And we see a lot of flow, okay? Starting to enter. This is definitely our Pacific jet beginning to enter the south central U.S. So the purple, think of that as our mid-level jet. Okay. So if we compare this, is all this overlapping a moist environment? Is this overlapping a moist environment? Well, let's compare it. So these are dew points, same time period that I just showed you. All that moist air right here, all that wind flow in the atmosphere, it is not really overlapping a very moist environment. You got dew points in the 20s, the 30s, and the 40s. Now, maybe we get some storms, maybe into the eastern sections of the south central U.S. with this little bit of flow moving right here. And if we look at this, right now they're not calling for any thunderstorms as we're getting into Wednesday in this time period. So right now there's probably going to be some sort of capping mechanism, warm air loft, that's not going to allow for these storms to get going. So even though we got flow, a little bit of moisture, you're probably still not going to get any storms. All right. Now, why do we have a slight risk up here? Well, that's because we just have a little bit better of a pulse of flow in the atmosphere overlapping. Dew points actually in the 50s and 60s for a very small area up here in the Dakotas. So a little bit of a tongue of moisture gets yanked up here. Overlapping ingredients, a little bit of flow moving over that area. You're probably going to get some storms. Probably still a little bit of a cap in place, but we'll have to see how widespread it looks. Now, let's get into Thursday. Okay, Thursday's our bigger weather day and onward. Look how the flow is ejecting across the country. So at this point, I'm actually going to stop it right here. This is Thursday evening. You have, let's draw on this. So you have this Pacific jet kind of jolting across this region, a very solid, what we call southwesterly flow. So winds at about, this is 500 millibars. So compared to feet, that's about 18,000 feet. So winds, at about 18,000 feet above your heads in this area are going well over interstate speed. I mean, I'm talking at least 75, 80, 85, maybe 90 miles per hour. So we got this little pulse right here also of flow. And this is kind of a little bit of our polar jet, if you will, but this is our Pacific jet. You got basically two areas of mid-level jets kind of combining and getting close to one another. But really don't focus too much on that. Just focus on the fact that we have a lot of purple and a lot of red and pink on your map. This is a lot of flow in different levels of the atmosphere. In this case, I'm out in the mid-levels of the atmosphere, which is 18,000 feet or so. But a lot of flow over this region. So what about the moisture in this same area? So this is Thursday evening. Well, let's work our way into that time period. Okay, so this is getting bang. So this is Thursday evening. All right. Now let's compare that flow. Is that flow moving over a pretty moist environment? It is. Now in Iowa, it's much drier. Which, makes sense because if you actually look at this, look at day 3, you see how this kind of risk area is kind of bowing out to the northwest like this and then kind of bends like this down here. And it almost like doesn't involve much of Iowa. Well, that actually makes sense because if you look at the dew points are only in the 40s. So that's probably not going to support severe weather. That's why Iowa even though you got all this flow over Iowa, Iowa is not very moist. So therefore, if you go back to this and you look at Thursday's outlook, it doesn't include much of Iowa. And that's why, because you don't have those overlapping ingredients for severe weather. I hope that makes sense. Trying to make it make sense for you guys. And I know that, trust me, every time I explain it, I get just a tick better at explaining it. And so therefore, in these areas right here, like in Illinois and Indiana, down into Missouri, you got dew points in the 70s and the 60s at least. Very moist environment down here. And check out this little tongue of moisture all the way up through Wisconsin, even into Minnesota. So that's why if you go back here, you got a severe weather threat that kind of bows up into Wisconsin, and then it kind of goes back down to these areas. Better moisture right here. So, yeah. So because you have such moist air, you have higher in Cape levels. In response, you get higher Cape levels when you have more moist air. Now, it's not always the case. You got other factors too, like better lapse rates, colder air aloft. That creates fuel in the atmosphere too, the difference of temperatures and different levels in the atmosphere. But in this case, you have explosive mixed layer Cape. You don't even need Cape over 4,000 joules per kilogram mixed layer. 1,000 joules per kilogram will get the job done. So we have this slither of Cape over 1,000 joules per kilogram that goes all the way up into areas of Minnesota, Wisconsin, but there's explosive storm energy across this region right here. But remember, like I said, a lot of people might look at this and immediately think, well, the worst severe weather threat has to be in southeastern areas of Missouri. That's not necessarily the case. You know, Cape levels don't always tell everything. And I want to note there's going to be a bit of a capping mechanism in place for Thursday. So even though you might have all the overlapping ingredients in the world, these storms might not be able to get going because a bit of what we call a warm air aloft. This really prevents these updrafts from getting going and taking advantage of all the players in the atmosphere out here. So, but I also do want to note there's a lot of storm energy down in Arkansas too. Just you got to figure out if you're going to have enough flow over this area. And if I look at this, I would say absolutely, you got enough flow over this area. So I think there's the possibility that you could have a higher severe weather threat more into Arkansas. But, you know, at the same time, you're going to have a bit of a capping mechanism in place. This might prevent these storms from even getting going for Thursday. You can have all the ingredients in the world, but if the atmosphere can't be tapped into, then you might not get any storms. So if we, we're already here. So let's go on and move into Friday's severe weather threat. Okay, so we get into about the prime heating of the day, Friday afternoon. Now, we have just a broad area of flow in the atmosphere at this point. So I put my cursor over this area, 50 to 60, 70 knots of flow at 18,000 feet up in the air. So there's plenty of kick in the atmosphere to really get these storms going. But where is the best overlapping conditions going to be? We'll go to moisture, okay, and we go to the same time period. This is Friday afternoon. And a cold front moves into areas of the Midwest and the upper Midwest. So basically, even though you see a ton of flow over Chicago, points north, and you're thinking, well, we should get some storms in this area. Look how dry the air is now. Dew points in the 30s and 40s. You need dew points in the 60s and 70s in general to make these storms work. They like moist air. Dew points in the 60s and 70s when you walk out. That's when you walk out and you say, okay, man, it's really humid outside. And that is really going to be anchored into southern Missouri, southern Illinois, and southern Indiana points south. And every state south of that, dew points in the 60s and 70s, a very moist environment with tons of flow riding over this area. Now, the next thing you do watch out for is little impulses of energy, what we call short waves. This enhances kind of the low-level ingredients, kind of can create these individual low-level pulses of better wind flow in the atmosphere, what we call the low-level jet. This can increase the damaging wind threat. It can increase the tornado threat, and it's things that we watch out for. So we can have a large area for Friday that runs the risk of severe weather, but a couple or maybe one individual smaller area that just has a higher end risk of severe weather. And if we look at Cape levels for Friday, and take it into Friday afternoon, lots of storm energy. I mean, you got a lot of people been talking here in the Carolinas. Look at all this Cape that we got in the Carolinas. I mean, Cape levels anywhere from 2,000 to 4,000 joules per kilogram. But you got a lot of it across basically the entire southeastern southern tier of the country in this area where you have very moist air. So once again, A lot of flow moving over this area. Solid westerly flow, right? Lot of moist air. Cape levels in response. So a massive area Friday that has overlapping ingredients for severe weather. So one might look at this and think, immediately, well, it's only a very small area, but I'm telling you guys, we're probably going to have a risk of severe weather for this entire area right in here. Maybe a little bit more cut off. Okay, large area is going to run a risk. Huge area that just has overlapping conditions for severe weather. Now, we can take this into Saturday too, and we can already see another system entering, this side of your screen. But once again, Saturday is kind of the same. We got a lot of flow over the eastern section of the country and your dew points. So let's look at those. A drier air up here in the Midwest and the Ohio Valley, but once again, you overlap this stout Pacific jet, creating a lot of push in the atmosphere. Okay, this is overlapping a very moist environment. So once again, for Saturday, I think it's just going to be a stormy weekend across the South, and I just think there'll be at least slight risk up, level 2 out of 5, but I think that we could have higher risk too. And of course, in response, your Cape levels are going to be there. I mean, Saturday could be a bigger severe weather threat than Friday. But I just think that we're just going to have widespread strong to severe storms. Could be a bigger severe weather threat embedded into this too. So, last thing I'll look at here, and there's probably going to be severe weather chances Sunday across these same areas. But, it's just what does this look like at the surface? We don't know. But what I can tell you here is this is for Thursday. It shows explosive thunderstorm development all the way up into Minnesota. But do you have good low-level moisture up here? There's a little bit of a cap, and the better overlapping ingredients for severe weather down here in the Midwest. There's a little bit of a capping mechanism. So you get into Thursday afternoon, the slight risk area down here in Illinois and stuff, and Indiana, especially in Michigan, you're thinking, man, no storms are forming. And it really takes until later in the evening, I think, and all you're seeing is these little splotches of green and yellow and red. But listen, these can be some powerful storms late Thursday night. And then we start to get into Friday. And you see how these are moving. Watching this area right here, see how they're moving kind of west to east. Watch how these little waves of different colors. This is going to be just a solid and general westerly flow across this area, west to east. So we're just going to have, I think, just impulses of nasty storms across this area. And then there could be areas where you just don't have much storm development just because you have overlapping ingredients. There's other features too. Weather is, a very broad topic. There's many things to discuss that control everything. But I mean, this is late Friday night. A lot of thunderstorms you see across the Mid-South, the Ohio Valley. And then we get into Saturday. Look at all these storms across the western Deep South. Very well could be storms across the Southeast too. And we just have to watch. Just because we have all this flow, we have all this moisture at the surface, these Cape levels, doesn't mean the storms are always going to fire. There's other features that prevent these storms from getting going. What we call a capping mechanism, like I mentioned, warm air aloft. This really gives it a hard time for these storms to get going, even when you have the push in the atmosphere. That warm air aloft, these storms don't like because it just causes issues for these updrafts to push through. They like the temperatures to drop the higher up you get in the atmosphere. They like better lapse rates, is what we call. So I will mention day 6 to day 8 and onward. This is Sunday to next Tuesday. I'll let you read that, but I'll just sum it up with this. It says, ensemble guidance suggests that the potential for multiple rounds of severe thunderstorms is increasing for the southern to central plains beginning day 6 Sunday through day 8 Tuesday. And it makes sense that it is. And there's no outlooks issued, but I think there will be in the future days to come. And as we start off Saturday evening of this weekend, you can already see this other system moving in. A lot of flow digging down. Still a lot of flow over the eastern U.S. too. And I think Sunday, look at this huge pulse of wind flow moving over the southern sections of the country here, the south central U.S. And then we start to move into Monday evening. Look at this stout southwesterly flow screeching across the middle of the country and then digging down. Could have some northwest flow action across the eastern U.S. early next week. But this is a lot of flow going right over the middle of the country. This is seasonal type stuff, especially in May in this part of the country. And then even into next Tuesday, what we looked at was Monday. Yeah, we're getting all confused. So this is next Monday. This is next Tuesday. Going everywhere. So much to talk about all of a sudden. But this is next Tuesday evening. I mean, So this is just one operational run too. And the moisture will be there too. Like this is Sunday. Look at those dew points riding into the 60s and 70s across the southern plains. A little bit of dry air. There'll be probably some sort of dry line setup. This is next Monday. This is next Tuesday. So tons of moist air even into next week. I just think we're in for an active period. So let's go back to the radar. We're going to do a little Bible devotion. What time is it? 7:09. Okay, so we're pretty good with timing. Let's see if I can get this open for me. All right, so this morning, we're in Ephesians chapter 5, verse 15. I think we're going to read through verse 17. So Ephesians chapter 5, verse 15 through 17. It says, pay careful attention then to how you live, not as unwise people, but as wise, making the most out of the time because the days are evil. So don't be foolish, but understand what the Lord's will is. And guys, I know it might even get annoying at some point, but I talk about God's will a lot. I just think it's huge. I think it is massive in each and every one of our lives. And, I think that pretty much says that use your time wisely, be smart with your time. Don't be unproductive with your time. There's times to rest, and we're called to rest. Sunday's a big day for that, obviously. But don't waste your time doing foolish and worldly and evil things. Don't respond to things in negative ways. Like, if you're feeling down, you're feeling depressed, and you want to start drinking or doing drugs or something like that, that's a foolish way of handling things. So, I really encourage you guys to really figure out what your gift is. I mean, and it's tough to do that. And then once you figure it out, apply it to your life and try and make a difference and allow God to really work through you. So use your time to do that. Figure out what your gift is, and your gift could be your passion. Maybe it isn't. I love the weather and it is my passion, but other times I think that I might be good at other things. But I think it all comes together, and I certainly think God is using this platform, through me to you guys and vice versa. But use your time to, get better, build that relationship. I always struggle with that word, relationship with Christ, and use it wisely. Figure out what that gift is. Everybody's got one. I really believe that. Some have, these extraordinary gifts. Some, it might be simple, but either way, God wants to use it to make an impact for him to get glorified for it, and you're going to get blessed for it. So I know I say that a lot, talk about God's will, but I'm telling you, I think it is huge. Pray for God's will in your life. They're all your decisions, all your actions, all the things you want to do, your interests. Pray for his will in your life, and you won't make as many foolish decisions. You'll make mistakes along the way, but it'll make you more wise. So God bless all y'all. Hope you guys been doing well, and I really appreciate the continued support. Seems like views are going up a little bit, but at the end of the day, people are going to tune in when they do, and I appreciate the people who do. So stay safe out there today. We'll continue to figure this one out. We might be doubling up the videos soon. God bless all y'all. Have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you again soon.